Hello, a very good evening to you. Welcome to ITV News and to Monday night's calendar.
Hello, thanks for joining us. Here are tonight's main stories.
How has this happened again? As the clean-up from Storm Babette begins, there are questions from communities across the Calendar region and anger from the family of one woman who lost her life in floodwater.
1 minute's anger, 1 minute's upset. Could I have done more? Should other people do more? The flood defences just didn't work or couldn't work because of the amount of volume of water.
3 o'clock we noticed a puddle about that big in the back garden. By 6 o'clock the back garden was like this, and then by 7 or 8 o'clock it was hitting the step in the front living room.
We'll have the full story on how Babette battered our region shortly and what's in store for the next 24 hours.
But also coming up on calendar tonight.
Coroner concludes probation service failings allowed Damien Bendel to kill a mother and 3 children. Yet there are warnings within the profession it could happen again. And wish you were here. It's sun, fun and making new friends as we join a group of inspirational youngsters from Yorkshire on the holiday of a lifetime. But first tonight, to those communities pummeled by Storm Babette, the latest extreme weather event to strike our region and the depressingly familiar scenes it's left in its wake.
Tonight, hundreds of families are wondering when they'll be able to return to their homes, and businesses have been left counting the cost of devastating flood damage.
Well, in a moment, we'll be live in some of those places worst hit, Catcliffe, Retford and Newark, where residents are asking, has enough been done to protect them? We'll also be putting their concerns to the government's Environment Minister, Therese Coffey.
But we start in Chesterfield, which bore the brunt of much of that deluge which Storm Babette threw at our region.
There, the body of an elderly woman was found in floodwater in her home. Her son has hit out at the authorities, claiming his local community has been forgotten when it comes to flood protection. Michael Billington has the story.
The devastation and destruction brought by the power of nature laid bare on Tipton Terrace in Chesterfield.
Well, this is it. This is the aftermath of everything. The power of the water, the dirtiness in the water, just everything really.
The smell, it's really
damp.
Adam Duffy's home was inundated when the River Rother burst its banks just days after his engagement party. The wedding now on hold until he and his family can start to rebuild their lives.
Just coming back every day, I just see it and I think, where do you start? Garden's a mess, back garden's a mess, in here's terrible. My fiancée worked so hard to get this house into pristine condition. For her to see it like this, I couldn't do it to her.
But the human cost here is counted in far more than just material possessions. 83-year-old Maureen Gilbert's son found her body floating in water in her home on Saturday morning. She'd survived flooding here in 2007. Paul believes she was let down by the authorities.
1 minute's anger, 1 minute's upset. Could I have done more? Should other people do more? To me, the Environment Agency, councils, the sandbags were dropped off literally while the flooding was actually in place, and yet the flood warnings were given at 8 o'clock that morning. This place does seem to get forgotten. A lot of people don't even know it's here. And after 2007, when this flooded really bad then, I don't feel nobody's ever responded enough.
Derbyshire Police is investigating. Chesterfield Council has offered its condolences to the family. Today, the local MP called for a full inquiry.
The Gilbert family need to know everything in terms of the emergency response, in terms of what happened, in terms of why the flood remediation package that had been put in place was inadequate. And I think people here are questioning, this is now the second time that we've been flooded. Is it safe to live here?
Stephanie Winnard has lived here for 47 years. Despite trying to salvage whatever she could, she still lost lots of her most treasured possessions.
Photos of your grandkids and you think, I should have took that, how am I going to replace it?
She's also lost confidence that a repeat of these floods can be prevented in the future.
I think it'll happen again. It's going to happen again, so do you want to come back? If not, what are you going to do? Because nobody's going to want to buy your house, are they?
You're trapped.
Yeah. You don't know, it's just soul destroying.
The damage from Storm Babette will eventually be cleared away, but what residents want most is a lasting assurance that people's lives cannot be destroyed here again. Michael Billington, ITV News in Chesterfield.
Well, now let's head 16 miles or so north of Chesterfield to Catcliffe, where the community is also counting the cost of Storm Babette's trail of destruction, and they're asking the same questions as to whether enough was done to protect them. Well, Matt Price has spent the day there and he joins us now live. And Matt, it's fair to say there's quite a strong feeling of anger there, isn't it?
Well, Lisa, today is the first opportunity the people living here have had a chance to see the damage and deluge caused by Friday's flooding when the defences topped over. As Mike spins round, you can see the kitchen here, which has been totally ruined. Carpets have been lifted up, and those sentimental items, which mean so much to so many people, could not be saved. Outside, cars have been ruined as well. We've got some pictures here of mud and leaves which are seen strewn over vehicles right across the street here. The damage is likely to run into tens of thousands of pounds. Now, this is Chris and Sophie's house. They've been kind enough to let us in. We'll speak to them in just a moment. But first, I wanted to show you how high the water came on Friday. I'm 5'11", and you can see here on the wall, that's how high the water came. You can imagine how much river water came in to these houses. Let's speak to the people who live here. Chris, to say you're used to this is perhaps a little bit flippant, but you were here in 2007 when the waters hit then. Yeah. It's worse this time.
It's a lot worse this time. I've had 6 foot of water, mud and disgust, and the damage is incredible what it's done. I've got an American fridge freezer in there. It's poked it through the ceiling and then smashed all the kitchen up. It's absolutely horrendous.
I really feel for you. Sophie, we're talking about those precious items that can't be replaced. You're still quite upset, understandably, about one item you lost.
Yeah, so I recently got my Auntie Marjorie's piano. Unfortunately, she did pass away this week. So, yeah, not having that back is really devastating.
I understand. All right. Well, thank you so much for talking to us. Chris, Sophie's upset, but I just want to ask you, the council, have they responded enough?
I've still not seen nobody. I know nothing. All we're getting is what neighbours are talking about. Nobody's been and seen us. Nobody's told us what the future's going to be. Well, we don't want a future in Catcliffe anymore.
Thank you very much for talking to us. I know you've got a lot to do. I'll leave you be. I should say, for the council's part, they say they've had people here all over the weekend and have been putting people in accommodation where it's needed. At the moment, there is still a flood alert in place, although the water has been subsiding throughout the day. But here in Catcliffe, there's been anger, frustration and upset, which is completely understandable. That heartache made even worse by the news, as some people find out today they are not insured.
Okay, Matt, thank you. In Catcliffe.
It's heartbreaking, isn't it? Now let's go to Retford in North Nottinghamshire, where hundreds of people spent a second night out of their homes after the River Idle reached record levels.
Well, today, the Environment Secretary, Therese Coffey, visited one of the worst hit streets in the town. And there, many residents say their lives have been devastated by flooding for a second time in less than 20 years.
Amelia Beckett is there for us live tonight. Amelia, what sort of reception did you get?
Not a particularly good one, it's fair to say. Many people here really angry that this has been allowed to happen again. You can see behind me the level of destruction. This garden is completely swamped more than 24 hours on from that evacuation order, and pretty much every house on this side of the street is impacted. Some people won't be back in for months. Now, as I say, people very angry today, wanting answers, particularly as it's happened yet again. Some people were here in 2007. They say they were given promises, and yet here they are in the same situation.
The storm may have passed for now, but the destruction left is only just sinking in. Roy had recently turned this garage into a sensory room for his autistic son. Now it's completely gutted.
They're stuck in for the holidays now, they can't go out and play. And then we've got to think about sorting all this out, and that's an extra expense. So, yeah, it's just heartbreaking, angry, heartbroken. I just don't know what else to say, yeah.
So we have got, I think it's 20 inch of standing water underneath the floor.
Down the road, water in Craig's house reached waist high. Flood defences at his back door did little to stop the deluge.
It was crazy, the amount of volume of water coming in. I've never seen anything like it. Like 2 inch in 6 minutes it's ridiculous. Just drying this place out is going to take 2-3 months at least. I've had to move back to my mum's. It's just going to be like this for a long time, and it's heartbreaking, really.
I don't have anywhere to live. Can you help me out?
Lucy is still trying to sort temporary accommodation after she turned up at the local rest centre, only to find it had closed at 9 last night.
I haven't got anywhere to go. Both parents are elderly and they don't have room for us. Do we stay at the West Retford at £75 a night? We can't afford it. I've got a daughter who's living with the dad. She needs to be with us, we need to be together.
She had the chance to put those concerns to the Environment Secretary, who today visited her home and others down this street.
Everybody we contacted didn't help. Nobody replied.
Many here angry this has been allowed to happen again.
We're in the middle of a further £5.2 billion of flood investment to protect homes right around the country. But I appreciate entirely that's cold comfort to people in this road today who are wondering where they're going to be living for the next few months.
Well, I understand only a tiny fraction of that has been spent in Retford. You know, the beck behind has flooded again. People's houses are destroyed.
Well, one of the things that clearly I'm going to another bit of Brendan's constituency today to understand what's happening there. A local review will need to be done.
Nottinghamshire County Council says the rest centre closed because only 4 people had used it and Lucy should be reimbursed for her hotel. But it'll take months for many here to get back into their homes. And tonight, a feeling they've been left high and dry yet again. Amelia Beckett, ITV News, Retford.
Well, now we can head over to Emma Hayward, who's in Newark tonight. And over the last couple of days, there's been localised flooding and river levels are remaining high. And Emma, still a community very much on alert and holding its breath tonight.
Well, Lisa, I think a lot of people who live in this part of Newark and also in the communities around Newark have had a tense few days and remain on high alert tonight. You can see from our pictures just how much land the floodwaters cover around Newark, and earlier today we saw some people having to move the caravans in which they live away from their site because of safety concerns. We've been told that 120 properties have been affected in the Newark and Sherwood district. Now, half of those have ended up with floodwater inside the homes. Tonight, 6 flood warnings remain in place for Newark and further flood alerts also are in place.
And Emma, with the Met Office issuing another yellow weather warning, just how critical are the next 24 hours for our region?
Well, it remains very critical indeed. We've seen tonight, haven't we, on the programme, just how widespread the effects of Storm Babette have been. And for the next 24 hours really is crucial, and that is because more rain is predicted, and that will possibly have a real impact on the communities that have already been hit by the flooding. Here's what the council here has been saying to me earlier.
We're hoping that the water levels are going to be sort of easing off, but obviously we're going to keep an eye on this for the next few days and follow the advice from the Environment Agency, because water is fast moving and the situation can still change.
Well, that yellow weather warning comes into force at 3 a.m. and doesn't end till 4 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. And as that band of rain sweeps across the region, up to 50 millimetres of rain are predicted. And that will add to already saturated ground. So this, of course, is an understandably worrying time for many people across the Callander region tonight.
OK, Emma in Newark, thank you. You can, of course, keep up with that developing story on our website, itv.com/calendar.
And, of course, we'll have the full weather forecast at the very end of the programme. But also, coming up tonight, we're in Florida with a group of inspirational youngsters from Yorkshire as they enjoy what promises to be the holiday of a lifetime. Now,
Failings by the Probation Service led to the violent deaths of a mother and 3 children in Killamarsh in North Derbyshire. That was the finding today of a coroner in Chesterfield who detailed mistakes and missed opportunities which resulted in Damien Bendel, who was a known risk to women and children, being told to live at his partner's home.
Well, Bendel went on to kill her together with her son, daughter and their friend. The Probation Officers Union warned tonight that a case like this could happen again because the service is under such pressure. Katie Oscroft reports.
Families already grieving the loss of their loved ones now endure the pain of knowing that Terry Harris, her children John Paul and Lacey Bennett and their friend Connie Gent need not have died had their murderer Damien Bendel been stopped in his tracks. Solicitors read out statements on the family's behalf.
During the course of the inquest, a litany of failings by the Probation Service as to how Damien Bendel was able to commit the terrible crimes he did have been laid bare.
The Probation Service has continuously failed to do enough to protect women and children like Terry and our grandchildren. We hope that no other family has to go through the trauma that we live through every day.
As the Chesterfield coroner Peter Nieto read out the failings by probation officers, which he said contributed to the 4 deaths, the mother of Terry Harris and grandmother of John Paul and Lacey Bennett sobbed quietly at the front of the courtroom. Behind her, the father of Connie Gent held his head in his hands. As the lawyer for the Probation Service, David Sanderson, told them he knew that any changes made as a result of what happened could never undo their terrible loss. Damien Bendel had a history of violence. He'd previously been jailed for robbery, attempted robbery and grievous bodily harm. Just 3 months before the killings, he'd walked free from court after being handed a 17-month suspended sentence for arson. But probation officers failed to alert the courts that he was a danger to potential partners and children, and he was sent to live at the home of the woman he was to go on to kill.
Basically, I need the police and the ambulance and that because I've killed 4 people.
Bendel was matter-of-fact when he called the police the morning after he murdered his 4 victims with a claw hammer. As Lacey lay dying, he had raped her.
What have you done? I've murdered 4 people.
2 of his innocent victims had spent the day they died selling sweets to raise money for charity.
Selling bubblegum, bubbles, have a good day.
Go on then.
John Paul Bennett was 13. His younger sister Lacey, aged 11, died with him. Her school friend Connie Gent was at the house for a sleepover, and Terry Harris was in the early stages of pregnancy when Bendel murdered her.
None of our members goes to work to see people hurt or murdered.
These horrific crimes were committed by someone who had slipped through a net. According to the head of one probation officers' union, the holes in a beleaguered system are still there. Could we see another case like this one if changes aren't made?
I'm afraid to say yes, we will. And that's despite all the efforts that are being made to learn the lessons that will come out of this inquest and others.
It's shone a spotlight on some of the problems that were going on in probation, which people in probation already knew about, and I think that leadership within probation already knew about, but what it's done is it's brought them to the attention of the public, and it's brought it to the attention of politicians who have then had to do something about it.
For the families of the 4 victims, the mistakes which led up to the killings altered their lives. A mother and 3 children were victims of Damien Bendel and victims of a system which failed them. Katie Oscroft, ITV News, Chesterfield.
And British Steel says it's considering a switch to greener methods of production, which, according to reports, could see as many as 2,000 jobs at the Scunthorpe-based firm cut. It's been reported that almost half the company's workforce could be put at risk if the owners decide to shift to electric furnaces. A spokesperson for British Steel said it's assessing its options as part of a wider commitment to reaching net zero carbon.
Now, early goals from Cian Harrott and Jack Rodoni were enough for Darren Moore to celebrate his first win since becoming Huddersfield Town manager. They beat QPR 2-1. And there was controversy in Danny Rawls' first game as Sheffield Wednesday boss. His team thought they'd won a penalty at Watford before the referee changed his mind after consulting with his assistant. Typically, the home side won it 8 minutes from time. In League One, Barnsley had to wear their black third strip at Leyton Orient after their normal white away kit was destroyed in last week's team bus fire, though Herbie Kane's equaliser in a 1-1 draw would have looked good in any colour, wouldn't it? Harrogate came from a goal down to beat Colchester in League 2. The winner from Sam Follerin, an absolute beauty. Over 21,500 saw Bradford rescue a point at home to Wrexham thanks to Adam Wilson's late strike. And Doncaster's upturn in form continued with a 2-1 win at Tranmere. Mo Farr with a delightful little chip for the winner.
So that's football, Chris. What about rugby league?
Yeah, well, there's been an event happening today that, well, we all saw coming. Darren Powell has been appointed as Wakefield's new head coach. The former Leeds and Castleford coach has signed a 4-year contract and replaces Mark Applegarth, who was officially relieved of his duties this morning following Wakey's relegation from Super League. The club have also confirmed their takeover by Matt Ellis, the owner of DIY Kitchens. It must mean there's going to be some decent catering at Wakefield for next season, doesn't it, you think?
Let's hope so. Thank you very much, Chris.
You're welcome.
Comprehensive as ever.
Thank you.
See you later.
Now, children from our region are among around 200 youngsters having the time of their lives on a very special trip to Florida. And for the first time for many of them, without their parents.
Yes, all those on holiday, which has been organised by the charity Dream Flight, have a serious illness or disability and they're being looked after by volunteers. Here's Kevin Ashford.
It's 10 days of all kinds of fun from start to finish. Every year this charity takes seriously ill and disabled children for an all-expenses-paid trip to the theme parks of Florida. The youngsters are divided into geographical groups. Many of those from Yorkshire are in the Dolphins group, like AJ and Alec from Sheffield.
I was expecting just to be going on a couple of rides, like 5 days, then going home. It turns out we're spending 10 days here.
And is that good news?
Yeah.
It's definitely made me enjoy myself quite a bit, and then it's made me realise I can do quite a few more things than I thought I could do.
Liz Johnson, who won gold for Team GB as a Paralympian swimmer, was brought on one of the holidays as an 11-year-old. She's now in her 11th year as an adult volunteer on the trips.
I think for me, if they can go home feeling that they can believe in themselves and that they should be proud of who they are and have the context that things can be difficult, but actually it doesn't mean that they're less worthy of opportunity out in the real world, then that can only be a good thing.
While they're out here, the youngsters are looked after by a small army of British and American volunteers. It includes doctors, nurses and physiotherapists. For many of the children, it's the first time away from parents and carers.
Do you want to get home?
No, not at all. I really hope our flight gets delayed so then we can stay an extra night.
Yeah, that's why I want to.
Assuming that hoped-for delay doesn't happen, the children will land back home tomorrow after a trip that was much more than just a holiday. Kevin Ashford, ITV News.
Oh, what a wonderful time it looks like they've all had. And arriving back tomorrow, some very tired children, I expect.
Well, they don't want to come home, do they? They're having such a great time, which
always
is lovely.
a sign of a good holiday when you don't want to come back, isn't it?
Absolutely. Well, with the weather being the way it is, no wonder they want to stay in Florida. Let's get that all-important weather forecast now from James Wright.
Good visibility on the horizon. TUI sponsors ITV Yorkshire Weather.
Hello there, good evening. It's been a recovery day from Storm Barbet, certainly a drier day, but the ground is still sodden, so this headline of more rain and showers probably not particularly welcome. It won't take much more rain to see any issues exacerbated. Low pressure, a sign of unsettled weather through the rest of the week. You see plenty of those just there. Lots of showers to come and more Atlantic systems bringing more rain at times as we head towards the end of the week. So we've had a bit of a dry day today, a little bit of a break. It's not going to last much longer. We'll start to see this rain pushing up from the south, heavy in places. A yellow warning in force from around 3 in the morning through to about 4 in the afternoon. Quite widely 10 to 20 millimetres of rain, possibly up to 40. That's from pretty much Bridlington right the way down to the Wash and pretty much the whole of our patch. So we're we're all going to see rain and the associated issues. Temperatures 9 to 11 overnight and really not raising particularly much through the day. It's all going to be about the wet weather. You can see the bright colours here suggesting some heavier downpours, and it won't take too many leaves off a tree to cover up a drain to see some surface water issues, so do take care. Temperature wise, like I say, not really rising much through the day, 11 or 12 Celsius, 13 at best. We might get another little bit of a break through Wednesday, but you can see this band of rain lurking for overnight into Thursday. In fact, that'll still be with us Thursday morning before eventually clearing. Lots of showers to come in behind, at least the wind eases off a touch Thursday later on. More showers to come on Friday.
TUI sponsors ITV Yorkshire Weather.
Now, just before we go tonight, some news about us. We're delighted to tell you that Calendar has been named Best News Programme at the Regional Royal Television Society Awards. The award was for our coverage of the death of Her Majesty the Queen Elizabeth last year, and here's the award look.
Shiny. I gave it a bit of a polish before we came in. I think so many people had to get their hands on it after it had been awarded that a few fingerprints on it. But we should also say a big congratulations to our colleague Helen Steele. She picked up the award for Best News and Current Affairs reporter. So well done, Helen.
Brilliant news. Well, we'll see you for another award-winning Calendar tomorrow night at 6. Good night.
Bye-bye.